Welcome to Warblog. Today we're looking at the Beit Jinn pocket, December 2017. Sort of a few days old at the moment, so developments might have changed. But essentially, what's happening is the Syrian Army are moving to cut across here, like that, and then they're going to move. Well, once they've split these two sides up, they're in a position to move west onto here. And I think, as of recording, they've already done that. So I'm just going to get straight into sort of playing it. So they basically do a sort of beeline straight through to there. So I'll go into play mode where I will be able to get the drawing tool out. So essentially the pocket is, well, like this. So that's the this is all occupied by Hayat Tahrir, al-Sham, or whatever they are. Who are they? I don't remember. It will be on this one. Hayat Tahrir al-Sham. So that's the pocket that they sort of have. And they've pretty much done most of this already, but they're moving directly down this way, like that, taking out this, and heading to Tal al-Baida. Now, the thing to sort of bear in mind with regards to sort of these things, these sort of strategic developments, is it's not a full rush on everything. So these units are all sort of designed to hold static. And they sort of, to a small extent, balance each other out. For example, you wouldn't really want to start pushing in here, even though you could, just because that's not what they're doing. Now, theoretically, you could do this any number of ways. Hex format is very different to reality in the sense that there's probably reasons why they didn't push this way, for example. But they could have. So I think what you've got to do is to get the principal historic train of events correct, and then consider, well, why did they do this, or why did they do that? I mean, for example, to understand the difference between maybe these two directive pushes, or maybe coming from the south, which might seem a lot simpler, you sort of maybe have to look at the territory, the geography, even the sort of the land use of these areas. I mean, it's very different. A lot of what we've got along here is all farms. Although it's sort of arid farming, so it's I've still put it in there as sort of desert as a tile hex. It's quite productive. So it could be that there are other reasons why they're going through this area. Maybe these are strongholds, and they actually want to take the strongholds out first. Get rid of all the squiggly lines. So essentially they've got their own task force, which is obviously here, together with National Defence Forces, and they're obviously sort of building up to do that, as opposed to coming in from here. So I mean, they could have done it from the other side, but maybe this, there's got to be a reason. So we're going to just jump into to actually playing that. Now, I think the first thing to do is to sort of just have a think about the strategic sort of requirements. As I said, they come straight through. Let's get the drawing tool out again. They actually come straight through here. So obviously we want to take this, and then that. And we could go like that. Alternatively, we could have a broader front. Comes down here. Sort of creating our lines of advance accordingly, which I think is what I will do strategically, because we can assume that there will be other units in here, and it will give us a corridor to sort of push through with. And the thing is, once we take the hill, and once we've secured, say, that, and I think, you know, we could almost, well, we could say is once we've sort of joined that, then we can start with our push this way, taking out Mughal al-Mir, etc. So I think that's the sort of strategic direction that I'm going to sort of do it in. So the first thing to do is really have a look at what we've got there. So we've got 4 irregulars. We've got 3 irregulars with some rockets in there, which is al-Magjan, al-Kazan, al-Magjan, and al-Antar. Now the thing to bear in mind, these are all hilltops, so these are not settlements like this, which is a town, Mughda al-Mir, which is a town, Beit Saba, which is a town. So, you know, I think what they're trying to do from this hex perspective is to take out the strategic high ground, making it easier to just go straight through all this relatively open area here without, you know, the risk of having rebel strongholds active up here, possibly firing rockets and artillery from in the hills, coming out of the hills and striking. You know, once they've secured this, they'll probably find it a lot easier with the security of holding these strategic heights into doing that. But to be quite honest, I haven't studied this intently. I've just looked at a South Front article and thought, that's sort of a bit new. The thing that struck me, and I can't find it because I don't remember any of these names, it's incredibly similar. In fact, I think it's almost very close to another little pocket that was in that same part, and it looked exactly the same. I'm only wondering whether I've sort of covered some of this ground before. It was very similar with a sort of, you know, an east-west trail that went through, and it was just in this little canyon type thing. And when you looked at geography, it was very specific. So again, you might want to look at the actual geography if you can, you know, aerial shots and Google Earth and even photos and of course videos of what's happening. I don't think I put a video in here, but the South Front thing has some videos, etc., etc. So anyway, we've got 4 irregulars in there and 3 down here. So, but of course, the first thing is we've got these 2 irregular companies there. Now they're not going to last for long, but they're in some hills. So there's nothing special, but I think that maybe the next thing to do would be to maybe look at, so we've got some rockets in there with a 4 range, 1, 2, 3, 4. So it might be worth, considering that there's rockets, 1, 2, 3, 4, it might be worth, now this is just a gameplay, a sort of rule play, so to speak. It might be worth coming down, this line like that. So instead of coming down in a broad way, just coming down here and then moving that way, and or, considering that is an objective, setting up an artillery point here, 1, 2, 3, 4. We could either do it there, or we could try and do it there, because sometimes it sort of overextends. So we could set up some artillery there and just keep bombarding them, because their rockets are probably not going to be as good, and plus the Syrian army would have defensive capabilities in the hills there. So if we actually choose that, so that we can maybe avoid some of this artillery, because the thing is, if they move out of there, they'll lose their defensive bonus because they're all entrenched. So counter artillery, 2 lots of artillery in there, and very little else, and no air power. It's going to take a while to get that artillery into place. So I'm going to start off with an advance push that way. I wonder if we can reach it. No. Okay, let's reload that. We can definitely fire on something. Now I'm pretty sure that these units are going to be fairly decimated. Now I made a, well, I wouldn't say I made a mistake, but it would be nice if I could surround that. But I can't get to that hex there. I can get this hex, so I can move there. I can get there, but I can't get in either of these two hexes actually. So there's no surrounding to be done. However, they're in hills, so they're 2 doubled to 4, so it's not particularly great. So all I need are 14. It's 14 manpower against them. These rockets might be useful. So that's 8, and he'll be 3, so it's 11, plus one of these. Okay. I'm not going to use him because he's still fresh. Now hopefully these units will all vanish. Two to 1. So they were worth 8. Oh, that's right. They were entrenched in hills, not 4. They were in hills, yeah, but they were also entrenched. But that was just shy of, if they were at 4, my brain just doesn't work, because if they were at 4, to get 7 to 1, I would have needed 4 7s, not 2 7s, so that would have been 28. So I was nowhere near enough. But they fought bravely and forced them to retreat, which is almost as good. And we've got no more movement with that unit, but that wasn't brilliant. Well, they're both depressed. I should have done that another way actually. Now I'm thinking of it again. I should have attacked with these units, leaving these ones fresh, and then they could have moved on advance, so to speak. Oh well. I don't want to move him too far in. In fact, what I might do with him is move him back to there, move him to there, so I want to protect these flanks. So what we've got in there, that's all mechanised. How much is that going to be through desert? Can I get him into the hills? No. Okay. I don't want to give him too much advantage here, although he's got us at least defend a little bit against this sort of eastern front here. So I'm going to try and leave that as it is. Now I either move these units this way, 2, 3. I'm not sure whether they can get there, and prepare for an assault next turn, or I try and move them this turn and try and do that now. So I'm trying to play in a way that I sort of am more inclined to prepare for the next turn as opposed to just do whatever it is I can this turn, because it's sort of just a bit gamey like that. But I think I'm going to try. That's 1.5. That was a mistake. I should have left a few of them back here because I'm not going to need all of them. But now I have to because they're otherwise stuck. So what I needed there was 14. So I just do it all the wrong way around. Okay. Right, so he's going to be worth 2. So I'll be worth 3 to 1, 4 to 1, possibly a 5 to 1. 3 to 1, DR. Well, I said a 4 to 1, didn't I? Or did I? I can't remember now. Okay. Right. And I've got some artillery, which I'm going to use against this stack here. Okay, so that leaves 3.9, 2.15, 0.2, 0 and 0. Okay, end of the first Syrian turn. Well, they've got a decision. Do they want to hold here? Do they want to commit any of these reinforcements? Now, what we do have are reinforcements along this road. Now, the reason it's sort of all built up as it is which is sort of, in a sort of common sense way, so to speak, is that before you play the game, you might say, okay, well, I can understand the primary objectives, but the Syrian Arab Army want to take the whole pocket, so you might be thinking for the end play, maybe getting to here. I mean, there is still more of the pocket over here, but for intents and purposes, what we've got here. Alternatively, you might decide, well, once we've got that line, I want to actually go east and clear out these units and play it differently. And so, if you're playing it with a different perspective, it's not so much based on just what the Syrian player does, but as the Hayat Tahrir al-Sham units, you might want to sort of not commit these reinforcements, because otherwise you could just apply everyone in this direction. So a lot of these units are going to stay stationary. Now you could sort of say, okay, well, I feel justified in splitting off one of these units because there's 3 in that stack. But when they're on this road, they're sort of they're fair play. They are actually considered to be reinforcements, and so you can do what you want. But that is an objective, so that's important to hold. So I think the one thing that you've got maybe is to consider protecting this hill with these units. You've got a spare unit over there, so it's a stack of 3, so you can move one of these units this way. So let's just get the thing. These are sort of options for movement. So that's static, but this whole stack is fair game for moving in. We've got one unit from here which could move in, and one unit from here which could move in, and the rest in this sort of space here is how you juggle it. Now, for example, we could just commit all these units into protecting this hill, which is the objective, although we could split it common sense in a common sense sort of fashion that way, but we're not actually under attack there at the moment. And I think it would be better, and I don't know really what they're doing there, to sort of protect those 2 hills like that. Here we could move units around, but I'm not sure what the best sort of set of things to do are. Juggling these things around. We've got 3 objectives there, so we could move some of these units this way, or we could actually just give up on that hill and move them this way, or we could force them to take that hill. Now the other objective is the other option, so to speak, is to carry out some form of counter-attack. And artillery is always a good target, but the thing is there isn't really a lot to counter-attack. Now we could send an irregular unit out to attack that armoured unit, because we would get a 5 versus 4, but that's still only a 1-to-1. They're not that brilliant, and we could send them all out there and get a much higher set of odds, but we'll probably lose when Syrian Army counter-attack against these units. So there's no easy pickings. There's nothing in there that we can spoil with regards to compromising their attack. There's just too many Syrian units, so I don't think there's really any scope. Now, for example, we could, and this would probably be quite likely to be happening, start to do things like attack this unit. Now that would be okay, but he's entrenched, so he would be worth 6, and so we would still be at 1-to-2. Similarly up here, we could probably attack there, but it would be difficult because they're in hills, and I think there's some vulnerable units down here, but we'll be doing those on the not because we want to start hitting everything with whatever we can, but you would say, okay, well, this is actually designed or devised to force the Syrian army then to sort of commit some of their resources, and then you can say, okay, well, we've been attacked over there. It's a bit of role play into the reasoning. Certainly not suggesting we just start, we attack this with that, attack this with that, attack that with this, and that's not what we're doing. Trying to be a bit more sensitive about the overall strategic sort of process. But we could say, okay, well, this is the spoiling attack, and obviously we're doing that in order to draw out some of these units. And you could say, okay, well, we've done an attack over there, so we have to move some mechanized units over here. Now that would weaken our assault here and possibly delay the assault. You could sort of say, okay, well, I'm going to cancel my whole assault. We've captured this hill, which is good, and we're going to not do anything until we've satisfied ourselves that this front is secure. And then after that, you could find that the Hayat Tahrir al-Sham units do a similar spoiling attack there, and all of a sudden we've got to deal with that, but we don't really have the resources to do that. So what I'm saying is there's plenty of options there, but I think the bulk of it is what we do with these units really, and whether or not we move these units back into here, one of these units here and one of these units there. So we'll start off with the easy one. And one thing to note is that they are all threes, which means they're not sort of motorised, and they're not driving around in their Toyota pickups, Toyota Helix pickups. So they're moving a little bit slower. It's not a town or anything, so I think we'll go for the whole lot. I want to leave that as it is, but we've got an option now, or a choice, of doing something with our rockets, but I don't think there's anything in reach yet. Oh, yes, there is. Okay, well, let's do it. I don't know why the other one can't do that. There's 2 rockets in there. Why can't he reach? That's so bizarre. Gives me a clue as to what that overextended issue is, but anyway. We're going to leave everything else there static, so we've moved that. I think we can afford to move this guy this way, at least to threaten this advance. And there's nothing under there, so I'm going to move 2 units there and 1 there to protect that hill ridge. This unit, 2 depressions. I think I either leave him there and have him recover, which I think is probably the better option, or I move him into this hex here, move him into there, to make him a little more inconvenient. However, that doesn't stop these units just sliding through here and carrying out their full thrust there. So possibly the better place would be to move him into there, stopping these units from doing a direct attack, but they would attack, and because they're motorised they would lose 2 movement points. They'd move forward, which would be 3.5, and they'd still be able to attack there. They just wouldn't really be able to, they'd still be able to sort of get into these 2 hexes because they've got these units here, but not with everything. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to move this unit into there just to make it inconvenient, and I'm going to move one of these units into there. Now I'm just going to do, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to move him there, and him there. That will delay him. And that's one of the things I like about, I like, oh, I know what happened there. These units didn't fire. It was this one here. I bet he's on 0. Yep. Yeah, that's why. These are out of range. It was this rocket unit that was incorporated. I just activated the assault with moving that unit. I could activate the assault by moving this unit in, which, you know, you can't do. But you know, it just opens up the combat screen for that hex. It doesn't matter. So that was a bit confusing. So these units are out of range of everything, really. 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm not going to fire on these because we're really not supposed to be focusing in that direction. And that's it. Now I've lost the entrenched nature in there, but I'm going for the delaying, and that's one of the things I like about the insurgents, is that how you can use them, and that was one of the main things, because before we had insurgents they would just be 1-1-3 infantry units, and this unit is going to obliterate that unit but there's a 75% chance that all they will do is retreat. So the whole point of them being there is to, they're trying to slow down the advance, and they won't be able to get a surround on here. So let's see how effective that is. Okay. Now, I'm not so keen about using these infantry just to hold that, but I think we're going to sort of have to. A DR. And he's moved back into there. So we're going to stay there as a sort of defensive line. Really need that much because it's not even entrenched. So it'll be worth 1. So that will be 5, 6, 7. That should be 7 to 1. 6 to 1. No, that's good enough. Possibly because I've got some depressions in there. So that pushed him back, but I don't really have capability to push these mechanised units forward without infantry support. Otherwise they'll just be sat there and then they'll have all of these units attack them the next turn. So I've got to hold that line, but it's to some extent it depends on what we can do here. So he's got 0 depressions, so we're going to need 7 against that, which is not a lot. Let's just activate the assault. So we can definitely use these because they're not going to be doing any movement, so that's worth 4. And 5, 6, 7, he'll get a bonus of something, so that might be 8, plus a surround, which is maybe push it up to 9, so that should give us a 7 to 1. Yep, and I've got a 1, but he retreated. So their plan didn't really work. However, it wasn't a complete waste, because I can move there. There. Let's just see if we can move everything. What else have we got in there? Oh. This is the big one. Well, it is a big one, so we're going to start it with indirect fire. Rockets. Okay. I'm not going to think about the odds too much here. What should it be? Well, they're on half. So it can be worth 3. Let's say they're worth 2. Let's say we're worth 2 for easy calculations. They're entrenched, that's 4. In hills, 8. So I'll have 1, 2, 3. I'll have about 4, possibly, yeah, about 5 to 1. 4 or 5 to 1. 4 to 1, DE. Well, that's good. And I don't think they all made it. What was the... So there's 3. So there was 1 there, 1 there, 1 and nothing there. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, 40, 41, 42, 43, 44, 45, 46, 47, 48, 49, 50, 51, 52, 53, 54, 55, 56, 57, 58, 59, 60, 61, 62, 63, 64, 65, 66, 67, 68, 69, 70, 71, 72, 73, 74, 75, 76, 77, 78, 79, 80, 81, 82, 83, 84, 85, 86, 87, 88, 89, 90, 91, 92, 93, 94, 95, 96, 97, 98, 99, 100, 101, 102, 103, 104, 105, 106, 107, 108, 109, 110, 111, 112, 113, 114, 115, the difference is one of them was eliminated and two of them retreated. So their plan to delay the Syrian advance didn't work. So in retrospect they would have been better off just holding in there. Okay, I'm going to move into there. No. So we can do an attack here. So it's going to be worth. What's he got in that hill? It's not entrenched, so he's going to be worth 2. 1, 2, 3, 4. 5, 6. Let's just do the whole lot. So we pushed him back. I'm just going to leave these sat there. We've used all our rockets up, haven't we? So that's pretty much it for this turn. Just to put a little bit into perspective, generally the way I do these games is to focus on the money shot, so to speak. In this case, the money shot is sort of here. So I could have made a much smaller game, about that size, and obviously the hexes would have been smaller, because none of this is really in play. But I only put that into play to give an idea of the bigger picture and to give you the option to play the bigger picture. But to some extent, it's always a sort of, I always go for whatever is, key to the game, unless I think there's some sort of benefit in providing a larger picture, which I have done in several other games, and I've done in one of the other ones that is up there now, the Satir Hill or something like that, which is really just a very, very small part of a, let me just find it. Syrian Hill. In this one, it's just there. There's a little bit of congestion down here, but all of this is just a pocket, and it's exactly the same. So I have thought of actually doing this one separately. This is just where the action is. I've just done everything else to provide the bigger picture, not really necessarily because I just want to create a large game. Sort of, so then you can sort of play it through. To some extent, I was sort of thinking, well, as things progress, I can add the details and build it up so that you can play it completely through. But I might, go back and do that one. Probably not. But it's a conscious effort to sort of identify where that is going to happen. In this case, it would be slightly different because we've got al-Baida down there, which is also included, and then this. So to some extent, what might have been a better option would have been to do a window, one of the tool maps, like that, and then it would have fitted in. Then we'd have lost all this, but I think it's worth putting that into perspective, just for sake of argument. So all the battle it is all happening just here, so it's very nitty gritty. So we're not just ignoring all this. This is just all a static facing off in these parts. Okay. So Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, Hayat Tahrir al-Sham. Okay, what are they going to do? Well, their delaying actions didn't amount to much, but we've still got some units here. can move 1 hex to there, or 1, 2, 3 to there. They're moving very slowly. So I don't really know whether to move 1 turn, 2, and then get into the fight, or to go possibly to there and then get into the fight there, pushing some pressure this way, because there's not really a lot there. This is their main task force, so we either face them off over here, or we put pressure on their flank over here with their artillery. They're moving quite slowly, so I'm going to see how far they can go from here. Yeah, we can get there, so that's good. I'm going to take them off this way. Put pressure on that flank. Depression 5.5, 3.7, 2, 2. So these two units I'm going to move back in. I'm going to leave those stationary to at least try and recover a little bit. He's going to try and recover. So everything else is going to stay as it is. Okay. I'm going to leave those stationary there, keeping that line. It's an expensive use of armour, but I'm not really that fussed. The armour's not going to be very good in the hills. Can we move these mechanised units there? Yep. That took a lot of movement. Okay. So they're going to be worth 2 doubled to 4. So we're going to have to get 7, 14, 28 to get the 7 to 1. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. 18, 26. Well, none of this is going to be able to do anything other than moves, other than fight. They're not going to be able to do anything, even if they wanted to do any more movement, they couldn't really. And commit that much there. I want to save my artillery, and hopefully these will all be able to get a strike on that other group further south. So could probably put one less unit in. Look at that, 12. Okay. Out of range of the rockets. I'm not going to attack them this turn. Oh, it's a shame I can't really take that. What have we got in there? 2.7 depressions and 3. The rockets really need to move forward. 3 and 4. Let's fire the rockets into here. So it's going to be worth essentially 2 doubled to 4 times about 0.7, so it's going to be about 3.2. So that could be a 1-to-1 from this mechanised unit, and that's it, which is not really not worth it. Let's just go back to the game there. Not enough movement at all, really. Okay, I'm going to split the odds. I'm going to split this group up. Like that. Press the button. 1. Well, that was good. And that was a 6-to-1. Should have saved something somewhere to move into al-Kazan, but I don't think he will move in there next turn. What I can do here, although it's probably quite unlikely, is do an attrition roll. Nothing. And the rest, we're going to try and push these units back. Yep, 6-to-1 and a DE, so they push them back there. Wow. I'm going to leave it at that because it's getting on. I don't like to spend too long doing these games, but it's interesting really to see how difficult it is. It's a bit of just a cruncher, but and I'm aware that it's just happening in this little bit of the map, and all the rest of the map, which takes a bit of time to write, is superfluous. But as I said, once you complete that, then you can sort of say regroup and say, you know, strategically, once you've done it, I think we're going to do it. It's just, you know, a hard slog. I mean, I think we've got some depression somewhere, but you know, it's not as simple as that. We do have a threat coming up here, even if we don't know it at the moment. And plus, being spread a little thinner along there, would sort of say, well, what do we want to actually, you know, will we be vulnerable at any point? And then you could sort of say, well, okay, well, obviously the gameplay is to go this way, you know, but you'd have to sort of, you know, once you get that to regroup, or you could sort of say, well, we want to finish this pocket, because you can now see how that would be sort of isolated, and work on, you know, taking that out. But basically this move is to do just that, to divide this place, and I think one of the reasons this is actually included is because it's a Beit Jinn, and it is actually the Beit Jinn initiative. You know, this is the main place for this part, for this region, and that's one of the reasons the map is slightly larger, to include it, to put it into perspective. But this is what they're doing at the moment. I think they've pretty much taken this, and they either have or they're about to move on to Mughir al-Mir. And I think this is sort of, although it's held by the rebels, the Hayat Tahrir al-Sham units, I don't think they're particularly strong there. It seems to be sort of, it's shaded as their territory, but only partially, indicating that they might only have partial control of that area, or it's just not really something that you can take control of. I don't really know, but they might want to, you know. So if you're following what's happening, it could be interesting. Obviously, that there's only a limited lifespan on you know, its contemporaneous nature or its newsworthiness. So, you know, in a year's time, it'll just be ancient history. But you know, if you are following it, so sometimes, you know, I do these really current ones with the intention of, you know, being able to analyse them, etc. I know it's nothing like reality, but it still gives you a flavour for what's happening. You know, you can sort of, you know, help you use this to sort of, you know, carry out your own inner monologue on events, so to speak. And remember, if you want to play it, all you have to do is sign up, paying your shekels or your PayPal credits or whatever monies they use on the interwebs these days, and you can move these things around yourself, have stimulate your brain in a hexagonal format. Okay, I'll speak to you later. Cheerio.